What's going on, everyone? It's Talks with Kenny here, and we are live. So today, the lineup today is I kind of want to talk about marriage. Apparently, it's been going on in the public domain today. Like I said in a previous video. So for Inconvenient Truths, I have done a video on family court, and it's been running through my mind about the state of dating today in today's culture. And I kind of want to speak on this before I get into the Thomas Sowell stuff. I know it shouldn't take too long. I'm just going to speed through this real quick. So some red pill guys are saying that I can't speak today, that conservatives are exposing themselves, right? They're straight up goofy when it comes to dating and marriage. They're exposing themselves, and this is not their lane, right? And this is from, I forgot his name, Shronovic. 90% of men speaking out against marriage aren't sought after. Truth is that a desired man who isn't a sociopath will date widely enough until he meets someone who has his number. That's that the Playboy or whatever it is a goober myth for a beer commercial, right? And I made a tweet saying that I believe younger conservatives understand the dating trends in our current culture and the incentive structures that exist. And some data show a majority of men, 60%, are not looking to marry. I believe this is a generational gap, not a political one. And I stand by that. I honestly believe that this whole idea of dating trends are different. And I kind of want to bring up some Pew Research Center studies about this stuff. So this is from Valentine's Day of this year, 2023, and I kind of want to just get into some of the data points here. Roughly 6 in 10 young men report being single. So 60% of men, right, which is between the ages of 18 and 29, which is my age group, majority of us are single, right? And for the reverse, on our counterpart, the women of our counterpart in the same age are not single. Like 34% of them are single. So a majority of women are in a relationship. And in our current dating culture, we got the sugar babying stuff, all this pretty much debauchery that's going on in our current culture today. And majority of single adults are not interested in being stuck or even grazed by Cupid's arrow. And this is on me. I'm continuing reading the studies for Pew Research studies. The percentage of single Americans who are looking for a relationship or casual dates is lower than 2019. So there's a trend that less and less young people are looking for a committed romantic relationship. And I think I kind of make my point that the type of relationship singles are looking for. I think I made my point with this study, right? So this idea that 90% of men who are speaking out against marriage aren't sought after is a misread, right? But what I expect, this is a generational gap. This is a generational gap of understanding what is actually going on in the current dating market, right? Here's from the women's side, right? Because like a lot of these guys say, oh, all you got to do is go approach women. Well, unmarried women have their own expectations, and there's a conflict of interest here. This is an article from September 2019. Unmarried women see a lack of economically attractive men, studies found. I just want to kind of highlight into this. According to a study, women desire that the average earning potential has to be about 58% higher than an actual unmarried man currently on the market. So what does this mean? It means a lot of women are looking at married men because technically no single man meets their economic requirements. This kind of can explain why a lot of these red pill guys, and I kind of observe this view as well, that a lot of women are going after dudes who are already established, right? This is why this concept of high value man is trending, right? Because women care a lot about economics. Women don't want to mention this. Women don't want to acknowledge this, but this is the truth, right? In addition, the ideal husband where it's 30% more likely to be employed, 19% more likely to have a college degree than those currently available to women. That means no single man, for the most part, has the things that unmarried women are looking for. So is this going to be a generation of homewreckers at this point? Now you see why married men tend to be sought after, because they already have an established brand. This compounds the problem in our current dating culture, right? I mentioned this before in my Inconvenient Truths for a Family Court, that there's women out here who will laugh off a guy that's making $75K a year. When if you look at it statistically, this man's in the top 10% for income earners. But women are laughing that off because of what? The age of social media, right? 20 years ago, social media didn't exist. 20 years ago, OnlyFans didn't exist. 20 years ago, Tinder and all online dating did not exist. The way people are meeting each other now today in 2023, even me, I was prevented from this because I met my wife, in 2015? That's before Tinder really blew up and was adopted. So the younger generation got it hard out here, right? Why so many men are against marriage, right? And this is a Redditor. I just don't mean not wanting to commit to a lifetime partner. I mean the actual institution of marriage, right? Because a lot of conservatives are saying that marriage is the foundation of America or a foundation of a society, and I disagree with that. Marriage is not the foundation of a society. Culture is. I believe culture is the foundation of any society because that is the roots where everything grows from, right? If you want to make the claim that marriage is the foundation of society and society is giving a legal authority to women, because essentially that's what the family courts are currently structured, right? The family courts are not currently structured for the benefit of the child. It's currently structured for the benefit of the woman. So if the woman has unfair power, there's a power imbalance inside the marriage. Who's marriage for? Are you trying to say society is built for women, or it was meant for children? This is what happens when you have a legal shift that caters to one side of the fence, and you're expecting men to go into this institution without actually changing it, right? And you get a lot of these. This is what a lot of these Redditors were saying. Right. The commenter will say, hey, my boyfriend's very anti-marriage. He doesn't believe the institution of it anymore and doesn't get it. He agrees that he wants a serious and committed relationship and is very monogamous, but thinks marriage only will screw the men over if there is a divorce. This is what I think conservatives need to realize, is that they need to make legal changes. And there's some steps being done, right? But I believe this is going to be a step-by-step problem. I don't think there's going to be any radical shifts in marriage for at least a decade, because a lot of young men are seeing this. I personally experienced seeing the separation between my parents, but a lot of men seen what happened to their fathers, their uncles, their grandpas, and they're like, yo, I don't want to experience that too. And that's a real concern. And just telling men, oh, blindly rush into the fray, be brave. That's not what masculine men do. These shaming tactics is not really going to help anything, right? If I want somebody to participate in an institution, this has always been my argument. It's a two-way street. The community must benefit the individual, and the individual must benefit the community. If you want a man to be part of your community, aka be married, the institution has to give him some benefit as an individual. Because end of the day, what a family really is just a group of individuals. And if the setting of that institution unfavorably is against an individual, the individual would not want to participate in it. There's no incentive for that. That's like telling men, hey, go risk yourselves and go die on the hill for a society that doesn't benefit you. That is intolerable in my view. But I digress. Let's get back into the story. So for reference, his dad lost everything in a divorce. So I see his background, but I have met a lot of men with this opinion. Isn't this what a prenup is for? Wouldn't a prenup just solve that fear? What is it with so many men being anti-marriage? So some of the comments, and I'm not going to skim through it too much. In many places, a prenup isn't worth the paper it's printed on. I am divorced, and we did a divorce agreement that was fair to both parties. There's really no benefit to me even remarrying, right? And there's a lot of stories people pile on, but I seen some people say that, oh, just get a prenup. Well, I hear a lot of different differences of opinion with prenups. One say prenup doesn't really work. Some say it does, but end of the day, that's just something for people to fight over again. Oh, I didn't really agree to this. Or there's videos out there, women teaching each other how to annul a prenup by acting like, oh, I was under distress, I was on emotional distress, making all these claims to challenge the prenup. So in my view, show me the incentives, I'll show you the outcome, right? So I stumbled upon some data facts or something like this, that a new study suggests that people whose spouses are happier probably also are in better shape, even independently of their own happiness. In fact, studies show that people with a happy partner are 34% more likely to be happy and healthy than in a marriage than those married to a downer, right? And this is going to go into an argument that I have about marriage and how to have a good marriage, is that don't marry an unhappy person. Which brings me back to this study. You guys know this study if you've been following me for a while. I reference this study a lot. Liberals are less happy with their lives than conservatives. And this kind of explains why modern marriage have a higher divorce rate than traditional marriage. Because the two parties tend to be happier than the other parties who advocate for modern marriage. Right? That's all I'm trying to say. In 2023, it's very important that you meet someone that aligns with your values. I think that's the best way to have the odds in your favor. I'm just saying. That's all I'm just saying. If you want to take the plunge, because end of the day, I still took the plunge, even though I'm aware of all of this that could happen to me. I made sure, but I did my due diligence discerning my partners, and I think that's the fairest advice that I can give in 2023 today. Right? But I digress. Don't marry an unhappy person. Unhappy people tend to be liberal. Unhappy people tend to be non-religious. And non-religious, to me, I would add a caveat to that study and say people who don't believe in something, people who don't have principles, people who don't have values, they're worse to date than people who do. Last study before I go into our main event, because I just wanted to touch upon this a lot because, Red Pill has been beefing with conservatives, and I kind of want to give my perspective on this thing. Are arranged marriage more successful than traditional marriage? The divorce rate is much lower, 4% to 6% for arranged marriage than for traditional ones, 40 to 45%. Wow. So you're telling me, people's parents know them better than they know themselves? I mean, it makes sense. You raise my son from the he's born to where he at today. You tend to know what's more compatible for your children than your own children, because arranged marriage is seen more like a business arrangement. There's more to an arranged marriage than just love. And I think this is the cultural revolution against marriage in a way, or this romantic rom-com style culture that we have today in our current dating culture. We see it in Hollywood. Hollywood has influenced the youth to have a certain expectation about how they become married. Oh, we're going to fall in love. We're going to do all this. Like there's a frame, there's a mental frame that's been conditioned into the youth. Mostly women are susceptible to this, not men. But women have this view of, oh, I'm supposed to feel butterflies in my stomach. And if I don't feel butterflies in my stomach, it's not the guy. When arranged marriage has the highest success rate out of every form of marriage, while modern marriage, which is the current framing of marriage that we're being pushed in our society today, both parents work, woman can be the breadwinner, right? But the gender roles are ambiguous. That's pushed as the highlight of society, but it's the worst performing one, especially if the woman's educated. Her chances of divorce is even higher. I don't know. I think there's a lot to consider in this debate, but in my view, marriage is not the foundation of society. Culture is. And if you don't change the culture, then marriage is just a bad deal, right? If you marry to a bad person, is your marriage good? Is a bad marriage a good foundation for society? I'm showing you the trickle effect, because at the end of the day, everything scales from the individuals. If you have a law that actively is actively discriminate against a specific individual who makes up half of the marriage, and you still saying, no, this institution is still good, even though it's been corrupted by a bad culture, I don't think conservatives are right on this. This is the 20% of the issues that I disagree with most conservatives, if you ask me personally. From a general rule, I think men have to be very cautious of who they align themselves with. Women too, obviously. But I think the current trends, or the current established framework for how we date and marry in our society, that needs to change. Dating should not be for fun. The youth is wasted on the young for a reason. That's why it's the saying for a reason. People waste a lot of time chasing emotional, impulsive gratification instead of making logical, long-term decisions, right? If you date someone based on values, that's a long-term play. Sure, that person may not be the most attractive person you get, but you align a lot on worldview, a lot on values, less friction in a relationship, right? If you want short-term fun, it doesn't matter the political affiliation of your partner. It doesn't matter what how she sees. She could be a rabid feminist, but if she's attractive, hell, we're gonna have a good time. That's only for short term. But if you're looking for a long-term play, which is what marriage is supposed to be, you have to date on values. And if the person don't meet your values, aka, hey, if I'm a man and I'm dating a feminist, she sees me as an enemy. I don't think that relationship is gonna work long term. That's just an example. But hey, I think I'm done talking about this. I got it out of my chest. Seeing all these conservatives, all these red pill people fighting over it, and I'm like, and one thing I'll say about the red pill is like, they complain a lot about the issues in society. And I understand their concept, like, hey, we're gonna boycott marriage until the legal system do something, but I think it's too passive. I think if Red Pill really wants to make a difference, or they really want to have the solutions that they consistently complain about, they should create themselves. They should make themselves more politically active. At least that's what I think. But hey, I digress. Let's move on to the main event. Everyone's that actually came here to see. Before I went off topic for my opening monologue, we're gonna talk about Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell has a second interview of 2023, where he goes pretty much more in on social justice. But hey, I digress. Let's get into the video.
Some 40 books, including his most recent book, Social Justice Fallacies, and lived 93 years. On the last episode of Uncommon Knowledge, Dr. Sowell and I discussed this book, Social Justice Fallacies. Today we'll be discussing a few of Dr. Sowell's admirers and an issue that is very much in the news. Tom, welcome back.
Good being back.
Affirmative action. This past July, the Supreme Court handed down a decision in Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard. Although the court had permitted race-based university admissions ever since the 1978 Bakke case, now, this past July, the court called such affirmative action unconstitutional. Chief Justice John Roberts. The Harvard and University of North Carolina admissions programs cannot be reconciled with the guarantees of the Equal Protection Clause, close quote. And Tom Sowell responded, how?
Oh, sorry. I kind of wanted to speak on this, but yeah. Affirmative action is racism under new management. That's a Thomas Sowell quote that I constantly repeat to myself and to other people who watches me or who tells me or who talks to me. It's because you can't, it's two priorities. You can't chase two rabbits. It's either equal opportunity or equal outcome. And you can't equalize outcome. That has never happened in our society. That has never happened in all of human history, that two people are the same. Two people have the same capabilities. They have similar capabilities, but it's baffling to me that a lot of people chase this red rabbit, right? It's impossible. You can't do it without actively playing balancer. Okay, too many white people, let's discriminate against white people. Oh, too many Asian people, let's discriminate against Asian people. Once black people start being overrepresented somewhere, too many black people, let's take it away. All right. This is why I don't really trust affirmative action. Affirmative action is just a shield, right? They use it as a moral shield. Oh, we need unrepresented people because that's the only way they can get into Harvard. Oh, that's kind of a racist idea. You think black people can't get into Harvard under their own weight when they were doing that long before you? W.E. Du Bois, perfect example. I love using him. That man graduated from Harvard. He didn't need affirmative action to make it to Harvard, but for some reason, generations after him do. It makes no sense. It's craziness. And all this is just the left or progressive that want to take credit for the success of black people. That's all it is, really. They trying to tell black people, hey, you couldn't do nothing without the government. That's a fallacy. And Thomas Sowell is about to expose that. Let's get back into the vid.
When you read that news?
I was glad that they said what they did. I will wait and see how it will be applied. I was glad when I read the original Bakke decision because it said that we can't have quotas and so forth. But in there somewhere, there was a little opening and it said that well, you can do this and you can do that, which turns out to mean you can't have quotas if you call them quotas. But if you call them something else, you can. And in Chief Justice Roberts' opinion, he's telling Harvard that, well, you can take the race and you can have people write essays and mention race and so forth. Well, then what you're saying is you're all offering them another escape hatch.
Yep.
And so only time will tell how big that escape hatch will be.
And I believe Harvard is still planning to discriminate on race, essentially, right? And this is one thing I want to remove, like not race, but I kind of want to remove that demographic where you go, oh, what are you, a black Hispanic or this, that? No, it's either you're American or not American. American, legal resident, visa holder. That's the only thing that should be on a government categorization, because this idea of like hyphenating and creating subgroups and subdivision, all it is pretty much trying to treat people as, hey, you're not the same. Yeah, American in name only, but you're black, you're this. It's teaching people to value things more other than their nationality. In France, I have cousins in France. They don't see themselves as like a separate group within France. They just see them, hey, I'm France. I'm French. They don't have this, oh, I'm a white French, oh, I'm a black French. They may reference it in personal talk, but in actual, a government worldview, no, I'm a French. I'm from France. I'm French. Got Jean-Pierre as their last name. No, I'm French. It's craziness that in America, we don't have that same type of national pride. That's why I like Vivek so much. I bet you if our culture, again, I'm referencing culture here. There's a theme I'm going with this live stream. Culture is the foundation of society, not marriage, not the family unit. It's culture, because what culture creates incentives. If there's an incentives for individuals to get married, they will be married. Because end of the day, human nature operates on its own self-interest. And to expect an individual, right? It takes a highly principled individual to do something that's not within his own benefit. To expect that for a large swath of society is unrealistic in my eyes. And this is what they're telling men to do. Hey, men, sacrifice yourself. Go into an unfair system that discriminates against you, that disproportionately is negative towards you, that have a higher burden of proof for you to get the same level of parentage over your own child that you helped make. But all of a sudden, when it comes to divorce court, it's the mom's child for some reason. It's a very skewed rule. And this is the problem I have with feminists. This is social justice being exposed, because it seemed like they're not really for equality. Equality was merely a shield to disguise them wanting women to have more power and privilege. They don't want equality. They wanted a matriarchy. And it seems like conservatives are kind of falling into the same trap. And this is why men are boycotting marriage. At least young men, 18 to 29, 63% of those men are not looking to get married. Are these the undesirables of society? Women want economically attractive men. What are economically attractive men? Well, the incomes reported by these unmarried women states that the men they want makes 58% of more money than single men that are available in the dating market today. So can we blame the current marriage problem on women? Women are the reason why most people aren't married, because they are expecting something unrealistic that's not available to them. Imagine that. I want a man that makes 50% more money than a single guy. That's a married dude. So that means you're going to be a homewrecker. It's just crazy how like human desire really is infinite. And I think because our society lack discipline, this is why everyone has all these unrealistic expectations, this idea that they're entitled to something when they themselves probably don't deserve it. That's just how I think. But I digress. Let's get back into the video.
For myself, I think that Harvard, with tens of billions of dollars in endowments, can afford to hire their own attorney rather than have the Chief Justice of the United States offer them advice on how to evade the decisions that's been made.
All right. One of your oldest friends, Justice Thomas, wrote a concurring decision in which he quoted you extensively, and I want to come to that. But first, if I may, affirmative action itself as an issue. I just took the Wikipedia article on affirmative action, and I'm quoting from Wikipedia. Affirmative action is intended to alleviate underrepresentation and to promote the opportunities of defined minority groups within a society to give them access equal to that of the majority population. Alleviate, opportunities, equal access. What could be wrong with such things?
Well, there are always wonderful words to describe things that are not very wonderful.
Yep. It's a shield. Like I said, the left is good at that. They're good at masking their true intent. They're masking, hey, let's try this idea. They pitch you, they sell you on it. They're like, oh my God, it's gonna be a great idea. We just gotta do it this way. And then when you do it and you get the results of that, you find out it's hell. Affirmative action is meant to promote equal opportunity and equal access that the major population has. Okay, we're gonna put you in Harvard, even though you didn't have the best test scores, but you good enough. And then you'll get into Harvard or you get into any Ivy League university and you're falling behind in class. You can't keep up with the schoolwork. And next thing you know, you're dropping out of Harvard. You're dropping out of Yale. There's no honor in that. You can't brag about it. I'm a Yale dropout. Where's your company? Yeah, most Yale dropouts, they start their own company and they're billionaires. Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg. What happened to your black butt? Why are you just a dropout? Most dropouts from Yale are impressive. What happened to you? Oh, I kind of fell behind in Yale. They won't admit that. They won't admit that affirmative action set them up for failure. When if they had went to a college more on their level, they would have been graduated. But nah, we got to give them affirmative action to Yale. Like these universities create geniuses. Here's an inconvenient truth about college, and I did a video on this. College filters for the best students already. Why do you think you have to have such a high SAT score to make it in Yale? You can't have a SAT score of 1,000, get into Yale, and then come out of Yale as a super genius. No, that's not how it works. Yale already filtered for those students. So then if you lower the standards so you can bring in a more underrepresented group, what are you doing to that group? You're setting them up for failure. This is why after affirmative action, Cornell, I believe it was Cornell University, Thomas Sowell, he made a groundbreaking scientific discovery. He looked at Cornell's history of enrollment for black students because for some reason in Black History Month or whatever, when we do Black History Month, no one mentions the fact that black people were graduating out of university before affirmative action. For some reason, we don't know about that. Why? Because liberals want to take credit for it. Liberals want to be like, you're the reason why you're in college. We're the reason why. If it wasn't for affirmative action, nobody would let you in college. Like we didn't have historically black colleges throughout the history of this state. Bruh, I'm telling you, these liberals, these progressives like to take credit for stuff. These progressive academics have spent decades convincing black people that they can't do nothing without the state. And I'm sitting here trying to tell them, hey, black people, you were successful before the state got in. You had college graduates graduating college before affirmative action. Affirmative action didn't start until the 1960s. And Thomas Sowell observed that when black people who got in there before the 1960s had a certain dropout rate. After affirmative action, he noticed that the dropout rates for black students increased. So what's the cause? What caused that increase? What happened? What changed between the 1960s and the 1940s? Oh, affirmative action. Oh, lowering the bar. Oh, getting more underrepresented groups into university. University don't make you smart. You're already smart before you got into university. The university is just taking credit for it. That's how I see the university. This is why I think college is a scam. There's stats out there. 40% of people who graduate from college show no difference of educational improvement between their freshman year and their senior year in college. That's concerning, isn't it? So that means you didn't really get smarter in college. It's just, hey, I'm here for a credential. I'm here for a stamp of approval. That's why you go to college for. Pretty much is to get validated by a third party. That's the reason you go to college. It's a glorified certificate. It's a glorified certification. That's all it is. Hey, you wasted 4 years of your life in this institution. Now you can go get a job. To me, it's a form of gatekeeping. But I digress. Hi, Idle Castle. How are you? I hope you're doing good. Let's get back into the video.
Tom, again, on affirmative action as an issue in itself. I read up a little bit on the history of this. The first use of the term affirmative action takes place in an executive order, John Kennedy, 1961. He's telling government contractors to take affirmative action to make sure that none of their employees is discriminated against on the basis of race. President Johnson issues an executive order in 65 with almost the same wording. And in between these two, this executive order in 61 and the executive order in 65, we get the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of race. And Senator Hubert Humphrey was the floor manager of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and he said the act, quote, would prohibit preferential treatment for any group. Humphrey added, quote, I will eat my hat if this leads to racial quotas.
I guess he's gonna eat his hat. I don't know if he's still alive. Is Hubert Humphrey? I hope to say his name right. Is he still alive? 1964. He should be out. I hope he is. The act would prohibit parental mental treatment for any group. That means affirmative action was never meant to give special treatment to a racial group. It was meant to prevent discrimination against a racial group. But look at it. Look how we turn around in 2023. Democrats in the past said, hey, we're doing this to prevent a wrong. And now Democrats in 2023 said, hey, we use this to justify a wrong. Now we use affirmative action to discriminate against Asian people, even though they're a minority themselves. But because they're overrepresented in academia, in the Ivy Leagues, we got to put more black people in there. But then you look at the NBA, which is 74% black. You don't see no affirmative action for that league. Craziness. Idle Castle said he recently purchased the book. Bro, I've been trying to get to Barnes & Nobles this entire week, but things keep coming up today. So I couldn't. But I'm getting this book by the end of the week. Maybe in the weekend, I'm going to go to Barnes & Nobles and find that book. Because I want to have it. I'm a big Thomas Sowell fan. If you're new here, Larry Elder, I thank him every day that he exposed me to Thomas Sowell. But hey, I digress. Let's get back into Thomas Sowell expose here.
Close quote.
Yeah.
And so this is the mid-60s. By the mid-70s, racial quotas are the stuff and substance of affirmative action. Bakke comes along and says, you're not allowed to have quotas, but you're allowed to take race into account in admissions decisions. So quotas drop out of the picture, but still it's preferential treatment.
Exactly.
It begins with a notion of neutral treatment, just enforcing equality before the law, but quickly becomes preferential. Why? How did that happen?
Well, I guess there are people who wanted to push this as far as they could. But it's also true that in other countries where they've had the similar things, because these programs are not unique to the United States. In India, for example, the courts said, you can't have these kinds of preferences. You have to, give everybody an equal chance individually. But they allowed them to take into account very subjective things. And of course, in India, what they would do, they would have a 5-minute interview with each student. And the students whose scores were not high enough, they gave them high marks on the interview. And the others who were up at the top, they gave them low marks on the interview. And apparently, I gather from some things that I've heard that Harvard, the Asian students always get low ratings on these subjective things.
Wow. You see the game? And sorry about the ads, guys. Normally, I'll never have ads on my live streams, but for some reason, YouTube made it like a requirement to have live stream ads in the damn thing. So now I can't remove it. The most I can do is pause it. Because like it's getting annoying. That annoys me because I see my viewership drop and I'm like, yo, where everyone go? It's probably because of the ads. So I try to pause the ad, but yeah, it's just recently, like 2 weeks, I think a week ago, they added this. So I hope it doesn't disrupt the process too much. But going back to my point, the fact you see the workaround. So now they can make it look like merit based. Oh, it's not. We don't discriminate on race. It's just Asian students perform worse on the personality test and the personality questions. Black students and Hispanic students perform better on the personality test than Asians. That's why they get into schools instead of something measurable and objective like math. Like knowledge, like knowing what to do, like passing your test. No. For some reason, the underrepresented group always have higher scores on a subjective test. Who would have thought? But then in corporate America, they'll make you do biasy training. I think university needs to highlight their own stuff and get their own biasy trainings. That's crazy. You see the game these people, Yo, I'll never forget this Thomas Sowell quote. Affirmative action is just racism under new management. Hey, bro. Yo, 93 still working. 93 still making books. And we got a president younger, like what? I don't know how much younger Biden is to Thomas Sowell. Maybe 6 years younger than Thomas Sowell. And he out there fumbling on his feet. Dude right here, 93 years old, still putting out books. Bruh, I digress. Let's get back into the video. Oh,
which can't be checked. Yes, and others get high ratings. So you can play these word games, and I just fear that this decision, which seems good and certainly overdue, will not lead to that kind of thing. When people back in the 50s in the northern states were trying to get rid of racial discrimination, one of the things they did was say you cannot submit a photo, require applicants to submit photographs. Mm-hmm. When Woodrow Wilson first introduced this kind of thing into the federal system, he wanted photographs. So if what you're saying is you can't explicitly give preferences, but if you can find out the race of the people, then you can subjectively take that into account. Wow. And the whole thing will be a farce. We'll find out whether they were serious or not. There's a wonderful book called Mismatch about the bad effects of affirmative action on.
Yeah, it's mismatch theory, and a lot of liberals seem to have a problem with mismatch. Oh, mismatch theory is a farce. No, it's not. It's true. If I put a short player, I put him at center, and he's getting wrecked by these 6'9", 6'10", 250 centers and power forwards, I'm setting him up to fail. I said that's a mismatch. Oh no, it's not a mismatch. There's small players that can succeed. It's just the people you happen to pick are not good enough to play at that position. Yeah, because he's 5'2". But this is the kind of arguments they'll do to try to get around the mismatch theory. You're setting up people for a test that they're not properly prepared to actually be successful at. They have a low probability of success. If I put a beginner to play against a chess master, he has 99% chance he's losing to the chess master. But if I put someone of comparable training, comparable knowledge, comparable experience against them, he has a better chance or more favorable chance. This is what affirmative action does. It put the kid with no experience into an environment where all his competitors have months of training, years of training, knowledge, experience, and we want to give them equal access. This is why affirmative action hasn't made it in chess yet. Imagine affirmative action for chess. Oh, female chess masters, y'all play against the males. Oh my God, all the best chess players has been overwhelmingly male. Nah, you gotta be able to beat them. It's not our fault you can't beat men at chess. Hey man, I digress. Affirmative action is not good. Inequality is not inherently evil. It's inherently real. The reality is we're all unique in this world. And the fact that we all are unique in this world means that we all have different outcomes. Equality is an exception, not the rule. But, I digress. Let's get back into the video.
College students. And then the authors, I agree with them with everything until they say that, the Supreme Court should take into account this and that and the other thing. And my response is the last thing we need is 9 more politicians in Washington.
So, but Tom, why is it best? Let me quote to you. Here, Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, this is the Grutter decision in 2003. So there's Bakke in 78, there are various minor adjustments, and then there's another, it comes up to the court again, and the court says, well, all right, you're allowed to continue considering race as a factor in admissions, although, Justice O'Connor writes in the majority opinion, race-conscious admissions policies must be limited in time. The court expects that 25 years from now, the use of racial preferences will no longer be necessary.
Oh, wait, let me go back. I got to go back so we can see this quote. Race-conscious admission policies must be limited in time. Like, she gives them 25 years from now, the use of racial preferences will no longer be necessary. She said this in 2003. We're about to come up in there too. So by 2028, by the time the other election, the next election starts for president, this Justice Sandra Day O'Connor says that affirmative action should not be needed. So this kind of explains why the Supreme Court justices are talking about, or they remove affirmative action essentially, because they're like, yo, we're coming up to close to the deadline that the previous justice stated, hey, eventually it'll be gone. And is the black community going to turn around in what? 7 more years? Sorry. No, because it was never a systematic problem. It was never a system problem. It was a skill problem, an individual problem, a community problem, a culture problem. Currently, the black community has a culture that produces athletes, entertainers, but not enough scholars and academics. All you have to do is look at the degrees. All you got to do is go to the college degrees and put up degrees that don't have a black graduate at all. A lot of them are in the math sciences. Most of it is in STEM. There's some STEM majors like physics, I believe. No, not physics. It's some very niche science-based STEM degree. There's not a single black person with a PhD in that field. But the system is discriminating against us. No, you just don't have the skills. I did a stream before where you can see the proficiency rates based on subject for black students. Black students perform the worst at math. Majority of the black students graduating in the 12th grade had below proficiency levels in reading and in math, which is one of the most important things you need to be good at STEM, to have a high-paying job, to be academically successful in Yale and these Ivy League schools. But you think, oh no, just put them in. When less than 1% of black high school graduates are proficient at advanced level in math, reading, craziness. So you have a small pool of black people who actually have the skills to hang with the other students without special treatment. And instead of letting them just go, instead of focusing on how can we develop more of them, we go here using affirmative action to lower the bar so that way more of them can go in without any effort, without fixing the root cause of the problem. This is why I don't like Democrats. Democrats rather treat symptoms because it's easier to show proof. Oh, look, I fixed your arm. Than to actually fix the deeper root of the problem, which needs to happen over time. But that's a culture thing. When our culture starts incentivizing when it starts being cool to read to your kids before they go to bed, which studies show helps your kid become more literate at an earlier age. Kids who are read to bedtime stories or whatever, they grasp the English language a lot quicker than kids who have not been exposed to reading. It's baffling to me. Asian parents are more likely to invest in the education of their children. So imagine that. If you invest in your child, hey, look, we're going to do some tutoring, we're going to do this, you give them an advantage over other kids. You make your kids more academically prepared. Because I believe our role as a parent is to give our kids an advantage. That's how I take it. When I see other parents, I'm in my mind, because I'm crazy, I'm competing against other parents. I'm saying, hey, I'm going to try to prepare my kid for the world. So when my kid's smart, oh my God, your kid's so smart. Yeah. I invested in Kumon. I homeschool him. I work with his little booklet when we sit in the living room together. I help him learn how to trace. I teach him how to write. He knows how to trace. He's practicing tracing right now. It's these little things that give your kid an unfair advantage. Just like a kid who learned how to play basketball at 2 years old, and then when he's 7 years old, he's playing basketball. They're like, damn, that kid dribbles so well. How you think he got like that? How you think these little basketball phenoms, they know how to dribble so well at 8 years old? Because they probably was doing it since they were 2. So that means that boy has 6 years of experience dribbling a basketball. You're surprised that he's dribbling it so well compared to other kids who just started playing the game of basketball at 6? It's the same advantage Asians give to their kids. This is why they're so far ahead academically than other kids, group of people. I think, look, affirmative action ain't gonna do nothing. Sorry. It's a cultural shift that's gonna have to happen in these communities to improve their success in academia. That goes for the Spanish community too. Spanish community, their biggest problem is the fact that they don't speak English. So it's hard for them to grasp the material. It's hard for them to learn because obviously most of the lessons is going to be in what? English. They have a higher barrier of entry. They have a bigger struggle to absorb information because they have to learn another language. Right? If I go to China, right? I'm using myself as an example. If for some reason I have to go to China, I have to learn Mandarin. If I don't learn Mandarin, I'm not going to be successful in China, no matter how smart I am, because I can't grasp the language. If I don't grasp the language, I can't absorb the information. It's very simple stuff. It's simple stuff that is not glamorous. You can't run on. You're like, oh, we're gonna tell parents to help themselves. You can't run on that. You can run on, hey, we'll make sure these universities don't discriminate against black people. Oh, and then you can take credit for that. Ain't glamorous to say that. Usually the things that are good for you are not, how you say it, glamorous. It's boring, predictable. But, I digress, man. I went on like a tangent there, but let's get back to the video.
The use of racial preferences will no longer be necessary. Okay, so the court doesn't like racial preferences. And you could even say, wait a minute, why is it that something that would be unconstitutional 25 years from now isn't unconstitutional today? But Sandra Day, these are decent, well-meaning people. Weren't they onto something? Didn't it do some good, even if it was in tension with the Constitution?
Yes, and it did a whole lot of bad.
And what was the bad that it did, Tom?
Oh my! It put many black students with all the prerequisites for success into places where they were almost guaranteed to fail.
Oof.
Let me. I'll go all the way back to 1965 when I was teaching at Cornell.
Let them cook.
They suddenly brought in large numbers of black students under special programs.
Uh-oh.
And in relatively short times, half of them were on academic probation.
Does that sound good to you guys? Let me know. If you're watching this on the replay, does that sound good? You come in and then in the back of the guy's mind, half of y'all going to be on academic probation. Is that a good thing to set people up for failure? It's the same thing that happened in the housing crisis in 2008. 2008, right? Not before 2008, Clinton passed some bill where if banks didn't loan to black people, he was going to come after them. He was going to use the government to come after them. Government interventionism. He was going to find these banks. He's going to find these corporations that didn't want to lend money to black people because on average, black people have a lower credit score, has the lowest on average, guys, average has the lowest credit scores compared to other groups of people. So they'll have higher interest rate loans, and they're more likely to be disqualified for a loan. So in 1996, I don't remember the 1998. I don't remember the date because that was before. I was like 2 years old when that was going on, when Clinton was president, second term, I believe. He went after these corporations that didn't loan to black people. So the banks were like, "F it, we'll give a loan to these black people, and we'll just give them a high rate interest loan." And what happened is these people got, I got a house, I got this, yeah, I got a house, fair housing, yes. And then 08 happened. What happened? They weren't credit worthy enough to actually get a loan because they were more higher risk of what? Defaulting on the loan. And to me, you put these same black people in a worse financial spot. And then the very same people went back and said, man, this should be a law banning people from who are not able to pay a loan. They shouldn't be allowed to get a loan. That's how we were doing already. The Democrats forced these corporations to give you a bank loan because y'all was crying, oh, discrimination. How come this white man got a loan, but I couldn't get a loan? Well, you don't have the income. You have a bad track record, aka bad credit score. You're higher risk. Companies, a bank won't take. You're gonna lose the bank money. You're gonna default on the house, and you have that debt hanging over your head, which will make your credit score tank even further. But did people listen? No, because people want what they want. I want a house. Realistically, you can't afford a house. No, I want a house. And then you beg the government, and the government make it happen to you. Make it happen for you. Just like a spoiled brat who go to their parents and go, I want to be the star of the basketball team. And then your parents go into the coach and yelling at the coach, fighting with the coach. Why my kid ain't starting? That's how black people go to the government. When things don't go their way, they're running to the government. Government, do it for me. Bro, I'm done, bro. I appreciate that, Idol Castle. Kenny, you are telling the truth. You should write a book. I'm sure you'll do really well. You have very good talking points. I appreciate that. I think I'm still young. I'm like 27 years old. I'm not ready to write a book yet, but I learned from the best, Mr. Thomas Sowell here. But I digress. Let's get back into the video. I appreciate that though. I really appreciate that comment, man. Thank you. Let's get back into the video.
For academic deficiencies. And so I went over to the administration building and looked up their SAT scores. The average black student at Cornell at that time was at the 75th percentile.
Which is good.
Yes. Better than 3/4 of the other American students who took the SAT. The average student in the Cornell Liberal Arts College was at the 99th percentile.
Damn, competition. That's crazy. Right? Let's do the reverse of what Thomas Sowell just said. Let's say we want people to go into the NBA. Let's say we put affirmative action. The average height in the NBA, I believe, is 6'4". I could be wrong. And we're like, damn, there's not enough representation. How are we going to how a league who's supposed to be the National Basketball League, they're supposed to represent America, how come 74% of them are black? We need to put more white people in the NBA, right? So then you start putting, okay, let's put in let's say these white people do the combine, because, we have the draft combine. And you obviously, look, most people who make it to the NBA, they're freaks of nature, okay? They got 40-inch because the average vertical is 36 inches, I believe. 36 inches, the average vertical leap of an NBA player. So then you bring all these white people in here, the stereotype white man can't jump, racist idea, but whatever, we playing along with the stereotypes today. And all the white players that got in through affirmative action for the NBA, their vert is like 18 inches, right? And then you went in and you put these teams, you spread them out because they're diversity hires, and you find out half of them got cut. 99% of them got cut. And then the coach go back and like, yo, we wasted time on these players. And then he looked back on their combine numbers. Damn, this dude was slow as hell. Damn. He only made how many shots? He's only how tall? They wasn't going to be successful in the first place. Because the average is 6'4", 36-inch vert. like, yo, it's the same thing. Now let's switch. That's a sports. Switch it to academics. Essentially, that's what affirmative action did to black people in Ivy League universities. That's an L, bro. But mismatch theory is a myth, says the liberal. Oh my God. A lot of times, this is what happens when we're a culture of instant gratification. We want the results without having to do the work. And this is what happens. You get set up for failure. Let's get back into the video.
And so one, you have the students who simply do not graduate. And so there's no great gain from flunking out of an elite institution.
Cornell University took really gifted black kids and spent 4 years
making failures out of them.
making failures out of them.
This is not unique
Affirmative action is leading sheep to the slaughter. That's my quote right there.
to Cornell. Back when we had later on in the 20th century at Berkeley, they had black and Hispanic kids who were admitted there. They had test scores just slightly above the national average. The white students had test scores far above that, and the Asian students had it above the white students. And the great bulk of those black students, an absolute majority, failed to graduate. So they came on campus, wasted some years of their lives, some opportunities they may have had somewhere else.
And they were talented people.
Yeah, and they were people who could have in any place else. The other fallacy is the notion you're getting a better education at a higher rated institution.
And this is the argument I made about college. College, when you go to college, they filter for you already. So if you're in college, it's because you had the ability to perform in college already. College is not going to take an underperforming person and make them a performing person, right? University is not job training. University is like, hey, you want a credential, you want a title, you want to be an NBA champion, you got to earn it. And this is how the NBA has a higher level of competition than college does. Then some league some G League. A G League championship means less than a NBA championship. Because what? This higher level of competition. And essentially, that's what Affirmative action did. The best of the best black people barely make it into Yale, but they deserve to be in Yale. But when you lower the bar, you put more of it. You get all these people with overinflated egos. Oh, I'm going to Yale. Oh, my baby going to Yale. Now, when I hear a single mom bragging about how her daughter is going to Yale, the back of my head, I'm like, I hope she's not an affirmative action hire because an affirmative action student, because she's gonna be back in a year. I mean, superficial stuff. The parent gets to brag for a year that her daughter goes to Yale, and then the next year you find out she flunked out. But at least she went to Yale. But what you learn at Yale? Nothing. Because your ass is here trying to keep up with what? They understood this already? I'm still and the teacher's going too fast for you because you can't keep up. And all these students are like, I know this already. Oh, I learned this a long time ago. Oh, okay. I'm familiar with this stuff already. And you're like, yo, how are they able to keep? Bruh, I'm telling you, it's different. Sit in a class in Yale. Actually, you can. Go. There's websites where you can do online class, not online classes, but you can see videos of Yale, like a Yale classroom and how it operates, and you can see how fast they go through the material. Not fast, but the material they start off at first day of class. You're like, yo, there's a lot of fundamental things that you need to know before you get the intro class, the first class. And they expect these kids to already know those fundamental things before the first class. And your butt coming from a public school, whatever, with your low SAT score, you don't have the adequate knowledge and adequate foundation to actually be successful in Yale. The same way as you hired a white person to play in the NBA and he doesn't even know how to dribble. That's the equivalent. But affirmative action is still a good thing. People want to keep fighting me, debating me in the comment section, talking about affirmative action is good. Without affirmative action, black people would have made it nowhere. Well, without affirmative action, a lot of black people would be more successful. We'll have more college graduates than we have today because affirmative action has set up our brightest and smartest black people for failure. And then these same people will say the system is racist. When in reality, the system the policy that claimed to help them is actually doing them more harm than good. But I digress. Let's get back into the video.
Universities are rated according to the research output of their faculties. They are not rated according to the teaching quality. No one in his right. Berkeley is one of the great universities of the world in research. No one in his right mind thinks that the education offered to undergraduates at Berkeley is anything to look up to. And so you send them not only to places where they cannot compete with the other students, but where the faculty really don't give much attention to that. The California voters voted to end preferential admission to the university system. There were dire complaints that this would mean no black students would be able to get this and that and so forth. The actual data show that the number of black students in the UC system barely changed at all.
Wow.
What happened was that they stopped going to Berkeley and UCLA. They went to the other campuses where their proficiency was like that of the other students. In the wake of that,
which it means it was more competitive for them. Like they were actually able to compete than jumping at a higher tier and like, yo, I can't compete here, I'm a fail. Craziness. All this argument, oh my God, black people ain't gonna graduate college, and then you find out, oh, the numbers didn't shift. Oh, less black people went to the Ivy League schools. Is that a bad thing? No, I want to ask the liberals that. Is that a bad thing? There's less black people in Ivy League universities, but black people are still going to college at the same rate they did before affirmative action was removed from a certain school or from a certain state. Like I said, look, college don't make you smart. You're already smart when you went into college. There's 40%, a large minority of kids that go to college show no difference between their knowledge from freshman year to junior year to graduation. There's no changes for a minority of them. They might have been more, oh, okay, I learned a little bit more about my field, but they didn't come out smarter than they did when they, So it shows you that university is merely a stamp of approval. That's all university is. So who cares if you went to Ivy League or public school? It's just perception. Oh, you got a higher credential. Okay. Ooh. Less black people went to Ivy League. Okay. Less black people being set up to fail. That's how I see it. I digress. Let's get back into it.
Over a 4-year period, there were 1,000 more minority students graduating from the system than there were under affirmative action.
Ooh.
Moreover, that's the other thing that happens. So even the ones who stay there and graduate, they may come in wanting to become engineers, mathematicians, scientists. They find they cannot possibly make it.
Yep, they can't keep up and they change majors.
They come out taking sociology, ethnic studies.
They go from the hard material to the soft stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, and from material that'll provide you with a well-paying career to a outcome that will provide you with nothing.
By the way, this brings us to the concurring opinion. Justice Clarence Thomas writes in Students for Fair Admission versus Harvard. Affirmative action, he writes, fails to increase the overall number of blacks and Hispanics in universities, quote. Rather, those racial policies simply redistribute individuals, placing some into more competitive institutions than they would otherwise have attended.
Yep.
Studies suggest that large racial preferences for black and Hispanic applicants have led to a disproportionately large share of those students receiving mediocre or poor grades.
What did that quote from Malcolm X said? The media can make the guilty innocent and the innocent guilty. Why the media don't expose this? The inconvenient truth about affirmative action. No, my YouTuber butt has to expose it. Here's the inconvenient truth about affirmative action. Why no mainstream? Why CNN don't report on this? Maybe you'll hear it from Fox News, but then they shame you for listening to Fox News. Why more people don't know the realities of affirmative action? You argue with people on Twitter when you say affirmative action is a bad thing for black people. Affirmative action is more harmful to black people than good. People will fight you on that. You just finished having ESPN, Stephen A. Smith and them crying on the internet when they first passed this decision to repeal affirmative action to being used for admissions in Harvard or these Ivy League schools. They're crying, oh no black people is going to be in college. Less black people will graduate. And you find out more black people graduate because you actually put them in a field, in an environment where they actually can be successful in. It's crazy that this social justice stuff, people need to stop being led by their emotions. People need to stop being reactionary and be more logical, right? Let's think slow, not fast. Let's take our time and digest. Okay, is it really true that black people are better off with affirmative action or not? Let's live in the world of reality, not the world of words. Because anything can sound nice. The road to hell was paved with good intentions. Someone can have good intentions for you, but the outcome is bad for you. Oh, I just want black people to have an opportunity to go to the Ivy Leagues. Sounds good, but the reality is, hey, I'm not ready for the Ivy Leagues. Just like I'm not ready for the NBA. You put my butt in the NBA, I'm getting smacked. I'm getting destroyed out there. And you could have saved me the embarrassment by telling me before I went into that game, hey, you're not ready you're not NBA material, son. Sorry. But hey, I digress. The truth hurts. People rather have sweet lies than the bitter truth. Imagine being a kid. You had dreams of going to the NBA. And a coach tell you, hey, look, bro, you're not NBA material, bro. You don't have the vert. You don't have the height. You don't have the skill set to make it into the NBA. And then there was a diversity, whatever, and you happen to fit the diversity metric they're looking for. Hey, we need a 5'7" person to meet our diversity quota. And you're like, oh, I'm 5'7", I can make it. You go in, knowing damn well you don't have the skills to compete at an NBA level. But you go in there anyway. And they put you on, oh, we got to start you. And then you get destroyed out there, embarrassed. People know, damn, that's a diversity hire. He don't belong here. Is that person better for it or worse? It's up to people's interpretation, but to me, that's worse. I'd rather tell you the bitter truth and say, hey, look, bro, you don't have the skills. Focus your time on something else. But this is what happens when we grow up in this emotional culture that wants to boost people's self-esteem instead of telling them the truth and reality so they can be better prepared. I don't know, man. But let's get back into the video.
See T. Sowell, Affirmative Action Around the World.
Quoted his book.
I couldn't help thinking, you told me at one point, I think your first paying job was as a Western Union telegram delivery boy.
Yes.
Tom, you're now being quoted in Supreme Court decisions.
Justice. What?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not.
That's not a promotion. There was, in these decisions, Chief Justice Roberts wrote the majority decision. Justice Thomas wrote a concurring decision. Justice Jackson wrote a dissent.
Uh-oh.
And Justice Jackson and Justice Thomas had at each other in their decisions. I thought it was a fascinating exchange.
I'm pausing this.
He went to Yale Law School. She went to Harvard Law School. These are both very bright people.
Uh-oh.
Let me read a few quotations from Justice Jackson, and then we'll go to Justice Thomas. This is Justice Jackson. Gulf-sized race-based gaps exist with respect to health, wealth, and the well-being of American citizens. They were created in the distant past, but have indisputably been passed down to the present day. Yet today...
Okay, before he continues. Indisputable. Lie. She lied. Right there. Just lie. There's Gulf-sized race-based gaps exist with respect to health, wealth, and well-being of American citizens. Race-based? Okay. Let's dive deep into this. What's the diet of the average black person compared to the white people? There's a stereotype. Was that joke? Those white girls don't have no seasoning in their cooking. Well, they die of heart stroke less often than black people. They're less overweight than black people. Now it's kind of close, I think. But, you know, if you look at poverty money, other groups of people spend more money on their health. When I go to a gym, I rarely see black women in there. Sorry, that's just what I observe. They don't take care of themselves like that. I saw a video one time, a long time ago. Maybe I'll find it one day. A black woman's claiming that because of the stress and anxiety of being black, that's why she's overweight. Essentially blaming the fact that she's fat on her skin color. Black people today in 2023 are using their race as an alibi, as an excuse for why they're underperforming in life, why they have negative outcomes in life. instead of blaming the reality. What's the reality, Kenny? The reality is your behavior determines your outcomes. If I'm the kind of person that goes to the gym every day, I'm the kind of person that eats correctly 80% of the time. I'm the type of person that controls what he eats. I don't overeat. Am I not going to be healthy? In that instance, I never mention my skin color. Now you can say it just so happens a lot of fat people are black, but it's not because they're fat, because they're black. So this idea that, oh, race-based gaps exist and it's undisputable. What about wealth? Look at the degrees. I just explained it earlier in the stream. There's some science degrees that don't have a single black person with a PhD in it. And STEM jobs, last time I checked, on average pay more than other fields of jobs. Black women are only at a disproportionate rate. Black women graduate college more than black men. Right? And there's a correlation with college degrees and income. Right? Both of them went to Harvard. This is what happened with emotional thinking. This is what happened when you're looking for an alibi based on your skin color. She's a woman, so you're looking for an alibi based on your sex. Identity politics. This is why I hate identity politics. Identity politics is pretty much, I want to use my identity as an alibi. Because of my insert identity here, I can't do that. I have a disadvantage. The system's against me. But she can't describe what a woman is. I digress.
This court determines that holistic admissions programs, by which she means programs that take race into account, are a problem rather than a viable solution, as has long been evident to historians, sociologists, and policymakers alike, close quote. What do you make of that?
Well, if what she said was true, it would have implications. None of it's true.
None of it's true.
None of it's true.
It does have the support of the academic elite.
Yeah.
It does have that. And some people regard that as
a lot of these college professors, college intellectuals, these academic people who only think theoretically, they want this to be true. But they can't find no studies, no evidence to back up their claims. I am a black male. This is from Idle Castle. I'm a black male, 53 years old, and I agree with you. I appreciate that. All right, I don't have a lot of black people that agree with me recently, but I'm glad I have one person out there. I know there's many people. I know there's many black people that agree with Thomas Sowell, with me, that have the same perspective. Hey, man, don't look down on me because of my race. Don't give me low expectations because my skin color is darker than yours. What? Black people don't show up in time? What? Thinking rationally is a white culture thing? Speaking proper English is white? We do it to ourselves. And all I'm saying is, hey, since we did it to ourselves, we can fix ourselves. That's my argument. Nothing that white people do really affects black people that much. That's the argument I'm trying to make. All I'm saying is black people changed their ways. If black people started glorifying people being engineers, lawyers, doctors, we can fix it. We can fix our own mess. That's what we've been doing since the 1920s. Since African Americans freed themselves, ever since black Americans got free from slavery, that's what they were doing. The skills they learned, they helped each other, made each other literate, started schools, Tahiti Institute, Booker T. Washington, 1920s, created their own businesses. You had ex-slaves die millionaires. Black Wall Street, 2 of them, not 1, 2. In North Carolina, Durham, North Carolina, and in Tulsa. 2 Black Wall Streets, not 1, 2. Black people graduating college after one generation. W.E. Du Bois, my prime example, graduated from Harvard. The first generation of black people already graduated from college. But black people can't do nothing without affirmative action. Craziness. History has shown that black people, racial groups are able to lift themselves out of, face and overcome their own struggles and tribulations in life without the help of the government. That's my argument. So you're going to sit there and wait for the government to do something for you? What's faster? What gives you more power? You have power over your own mind, not outside of events. I'm going to change the quote. Your group has power over itself, not outside events. Know this and you have strength. Frederick Douglass, I'm going to quote Frederick Douglass now. It's better to raise strong children than to fix broken people. I don't think black people are broken. I just think black people are misguided. And that's because of the media, the liberal media. Most journalists are liberal. They don't want you to know this. They don't want you to know that affirmative action don't do squat for black people. Actually hurts minorities more than it helps minorities. They don't want you to know that because then it put the blame on them because they're the ones who was pushing it. LBJ pushed affirmative action. A Democrat pushed affirmative action. So then how traumatizing it would be for a liberal journalist who make up the majority in media to tell black people, oh, we pushed a policy that negatively hurt you. What? They can never say, oh, liberals are the friends of black people again. So they have to keep this under wraps. Oh, no. They have to justify it because the reality will be too devastating for their little liberal ego. Because liberals have this savior complex. Oh, we need to save black people. But everything they're doing to save black people is hurting black people. They haven't realized that black people and people have to save themselves. All you can do is support them in their efforts. That's it. Give them school choice. Let the black parents decide. If you look at homeschooling, majority of homeschoolers are minority, Spanish and black. I'm one of them. I'm in that statistic. I'm homeschooling my kids because I'm like, yo, nah. Public school, nah. You ain't having my kid. The worst place to be a minority student is in a public school. But what Democrats pushing? Public school. They hate charter schools. A school that gives black students better academic outcomes than public school. They hate it because you're outside of their control. Because they're in bed with the teachers' unions. The teachers' unions give a favorable view of the Democratic Party. Because what I found out about school is a place where values are transmitted to your children. And some of these teachers, I won't even let them have 5 minutes with my kid. But we have millions of people, 76% of our youth going to public school. And then you see videos of Gen Z don't know when America was founded. Struggling. But they know the latest dance in TikTok. They know all the pronouns. They know all the woke stuff. They know about BLM. But you ask them a historical point in history. Hey, when did the Civil War start? What was the Civil War about? It don't matter if you're talking to a black kid. Hey, what the Civil War was about? Don't know nothing. Majority of our kids are going into that system. My conservative butt said, hey, look, we need school choice. Privatize education. Bring competition. No. You're going to hurt access. What's the point of access? Why would I want kids to have access to a bad education? Hey, look, that's some questions that we have to answer. I have my answers. You guys have to have yours. But let's get back into the video because I got to cut off in 14 minutes. So let's dive into the rest of the video.
It's the same as a documented fact. I'm not one of those people.
All right. Justice Jackson continues. To be sure, black people, incidentally, she capitalizes black.
Oh, good.
Which you don't do.
Yes.
All right.
Oh,
black people and other minorities have generally been doing better in recent years. But those improvements have only been made possible, not helped, not enhanced, but only been made possible because institutions like the University of North Carolina have been willing to grapple forthrightly with the burdens of history, close quote.
She tried to attribute the improvements of black people to an institution when in reality, black people improved their own lives. Historically, black colleges, why do you think they existed in the first place? That was before affirmative action. There's black people that was against integration because they felt our schools are better for our kids. But you force us to go into school together with the white kids. There's black people against integration. There's some arguments that integration hurt black people, black academic success. Remember that story I told you about W.E. Du Bois? Graduated from Harvard before affirmative action was even a thing. Black people had some good schools during segregation. And they forced the kids to move away from that, causing the schools to close and putting them in an environment where it made it hard for black kids to learn because of what? Discrimination. America wasn't ready to intermingle the two groups yet. But people like, Republicans did it, but we pushed them together when people should have the freedom of association. I mean, hindsight, yeah, we think it's a good thing, but at the moment, we set back a lot of black people's academic success because of it. This is what happened when you don't take into consideration what you're advocating for. But this lady here is trying to give all the credit to, it was institutions, because in a way, Democrats can brag about this. I digress, man.
Dr. Sowell?
Well, I wasn't aware that the University of North Carolina is qualified to grasp the force of history.
Right?
Yes, I would like to see some facts about this. The same thing, similar pattern of the UC system you see in a place like MIT. One study showed that the average black student at MIT scored in the top 10% on the math portion of the SAT.
Damn, bro.
And in the bottom 10% at MIT.
Wow.
I mean, in MIT, it's only a question of which part of the 99th percentile you're in.
Right.
And so, and
levels, bro.
again, there have been actually empirical studies done with medical schools, law schools, and in every single case where the black students are put in where places where the other students have similar SAT scores of their own, they learn more. Mm-hmm. And in professions like law and medicine, there is an independent test, independently of the institution that you was tested in.
Yep.
See whether you can pass the outside test to get licensed.
Bar exam and so
That's mm-hmm. right. Mm-hmm. And in this cases, where in one case in back east, there was a high test, high ranked law school and a lower ranked law school. The black students in both places had very similar SAT scores. Mm-hmm. When they came to the bar exam, the black students in the lower ranked institution passed the bar exam on the first try 57% of the time.
But oh no, we need more black people in Ivy Leagues. It's superficial BS. The black students are getting good results at a lower tiered school. Leave them there. Why is this obsession of putting them in the Ivy Leagues? To set them up for failure. And now in 2023, we're trying to remove the bar exam because it's racist. It disproportionately fails black people. Well, black people are disproportionately under-equipped to pass these bar exams. They're doing the same thing to medical school soon. They're trying to remove the test frequency in medical school. The MCAT, I believe, is what it's called. I don't know. I don't remember. But I remember this moves to lower the frequency of testing in medical school for black kids, Hispanic kids, students, sorry. This is crazy. This is going to bring more racism into our culture. If I find, let's say we live in a hell on earth where they remove the medical exam so they can let more black and Hispanic students go into medical school. You're going to have people questioning the credentials of Hispanic and black doctors because we removed the standards. Oh, these people couldn't be doctors at a representative rate without removing the test. So people are going to start discriminating against black doctors, Hispanic doctors. Start asking questions to Hispanic doctors and black doctors. Hey, what was your grades like in medical school? Oh, it's racist to ask black doctors what their medical school. It insinuates that because they're black, they have a lower level of skill. It's not because they're black. It's because you gave them preferential treatment. You lower the bar for them. Therefore, it's an assumption that, hey, they have lower skills than people who are required to get into medical school, like Asians and white people. They're going to create racism. And it's going to be a perpetual cycle. You discriminate on race, so that way black people can be represented in medical school. Look at this. We got 13% representation in medical school. And then when these guys barely made it out of medical school and they don't get the outcomes they were looking for because they had a false ego, a false belief in their skill set, not realizing they got there because of their skin color, not because of their skill. And then when they go out performing with patients and patients notice they get lower quality service from these individuals, you'll create racism all over again. And then you have a new battle to fight. Not realizing your policies caused it in the first place. Setting them up for failure. But we think that's good because they got to go to the Ivy Leagues. They got to go to medical school. We get to feel good about ourselves. That's where it really is rooting in. Liberals, Democrats, progressives, they just want to feel good about themselves. Oh, look what we have done. Look at the medical school. Oh my God, representative of America. Not caring the reality if these people can actually perform their job. They care about how they feel. Oh, I feel good. We are able to have all these black students in medical school. I'm proud to say that we'll have the most diverse medical school program in the nation. That's what the liberals want to do. Superficial BS. They don't care about the personal lives of these people. They care about how it makes them look. They can beat their chest and say, look at me. Look how good I am. Look how righteous I am. Look how I save these people. That's what liberals want to do. Superficial BS. Railroads 22 says they have warned you. They have warned you. Thomas Sowell, Walter Williams, Jason Riley, Alan Keyes, Shelby Steele. I know Shelby Steele. Charlie Payne, Glenn Laurie, John McWhorter, and Kevin Williamson. They tried to point the way for you. Yep, I agree. They all did. But, it takes more than 10% of a group to influence the other 90%, But, hey, we trying. Step by step. It's a battle of inches, not of yards. So, year by year, day by day, sometimes people don't learn until they suffer the consequences of what they advocate for. Sometimes you can tell your kid, hey, don't touch that stove. You're going to get burned. But they want to do it anyway. So, they have to suffer the consequences sometimes. And all we hear is that, hey, we got to put the pieces together. You got this result because of this. You think if this didn't happen, this wouldn't have happened. We got to put the pieces together for them. I think that's the best we can do in this culture war today. But I digress. Let's get back into it.
Yeah, and the ones in the high-ranked ones passed it 30% of the time. You learn more in a place where they're teaching. The professors teach to the level of the students that they have.
Yep.
And that's their job, after all.
Yeah. And when I was teaching, when I taught at Howard University, which is a black institution, most of the kids have not had the top education up to that point. And I'd come to the concept of marginal cost in economics. I'd have some arithmetic examples to explain what marginal cost meant. When I taught at Cornell, I taught a class to engineers, all of whom had calculus, and I would say marginal cost is the first derivative of total cost, and go on.
Wow.
Now, there's no point in
Yeah, because they already believe, hey, you're here. You have a high SAT score. We know you probably know this already, so we're going to start off from that's why they get more education done, because they don't have to waste class trying to build up fundamental knowledge, then get into the hard stuff. In these Ivy League schools, they go right into the hard stuff because they already expected that you learned the fundamental stuff before you got into class. Higher expectations. And you expect the kid that got there because of the color of their skin to perform at the same level of people who got there based on their skill. Asinine. But hey, anything to make liberals feel good about themselves.
But so the guy who's not had that, these guys at Cornell had probably had calculus in high school.
Right.
And the kid who's come out of the ghetto school doesn't have that. He doesn't know what the hell I'm talking about.
Right. One more time, Justice Jackson. The majority, that is, the Chief Justice, Justice Thomas, and the 4 others who joined them in voting to find race-based admissions unconstitutional. Justice Jackson says the majority seems to think that race blindness solves the problem of race-based disadvantage. But the irony is that requiring colleges to ignore race in admissions will delay the day that every American has an equal opportunity to thrive regardless of race.
She's lying. Because if you discriminate based on race, you're going to get what? More discrimination. Right? Oh, we're trying to help black people by what? Discriminating against Asian people. Discriminating against white people. And then the trend continues. Now, if black people end up being disproportionately represented NBA, They start saying, hey, we need more white people. We need more Hispanics. We need women in the NBA. And they start discriminating against black men. Now they're going to start complaining. And the cycle keeps repeating itself. Prejudice for prejudice. If we stop this and say, hey, look, meritocracy, you only get in here based on your skill. If you got the skills, you're in, regardless of your gender, regardless of your race. We don't care about race-based quotas. Race-based quotas bring down the quality of service and performance in any endeavor. All you have to do is demonstrate. Let's do a thought experiment. Me versus someone who believes in diversity and inclusion. Let's build a basketball team. You make the most diverse team in history, and I'll make the best team in history. Based on color blindness. I'm only going to pick the best player for my team. You're going to pick people based on their color, height, gender, sexual orientation, and you're going to get wrecked. Because you sacrifice what? Quality and performance for superficial BS. But it's supposed to bring equal opportunity regardless of race. How? That's the intention. But if you look at the results, if you look at the outcomes of affirmative action, it's not doing that. Craziness. Clown world.
And this is by who?
Justice Jackson.
Not one speck of evidence.
No evidence.
Not one speck of evidence.
All right. Now we go to Justice Thomas. Quote, with the passage of the 14th Amendment, the amendment that was added to the Constitution after the Civil War, with the passage of the 14th Amendment, the people of our nation proclaimed that it is the law that the government may not sort citizens based on race.
But we do. On my loan application, are you a black American? I'm like, yo, I'm just an American, bro. But yeah, I'm black. That's how I think. I think, bro, if I was ever president, the first thing I'm going to do is remove race-based signifiers and categorization. You're either an American, legal resident, immigrant. That's what we should be determining. Not I'm a black American. I'm a Hispanic American. No, I ain't for that. No, I ain't for that. But this is what we have it currently in our country. I'm not trying to butcher your name. Miranda says, I don't think that's a fair comparison. Sports team and creating a diverse learning environment aren't one-to-one. Overall, though, I do agree with you. Learning environments, a diverse learning environment aren't one-to-one. Well, what are you meaning by diverse learning environment? Creating schools don't they don't discriminate on race. A diverse when you do things based for diversity, you sacrifice quality. Always. Because like sports, right? I told you, hey, black people, I bet you black people spend more time, their kids spend more time playing sports than studying for school. Asian kids, they spend more time studying for school than playing sports. If I let's make a diverse athletic session, the Asians will still underperform compared to the black kids. If I flip it, hey, let's do a diverse learning environment. The Asians will be bored because they're like, yo, I know this stuff already. I learned this at 5 years old. I already can read at a third grade level. Maybe that's the sacrifice that they're willing to make. Then you lower the performance of everyone else. And then black people continue failing at a disproportional rate in college. Affirmative action lowers the bar for black people. Black people don't have the adequate academic skills to be successful in higher learning. But instead of holding them to the same standard as everyone else, we want a superficial win because we want to feel good about ourselves. The road to hell is paved by good intentions. That's just my argument. But let's continue.
He's making a constitutional argument rather than an argument on sociology. That's one point. It is this principle that has guaranteed a nation of equal citizens the equal protection of the laws, close quote. Well, isn't that a little cold and analytical? He's not concerned about the effects of the law. He's just concerned with the law.
Well, I think it's wonderful when judges are concerned with the effects of the law. That's what they do. What has been tragic and so much social justice talk is people who think that because they are very well qualified in certain areas, that enables them to make decisions for other people in other areas where they may lack, and probably do lack, minimal competence. I mean, the second guessing of the police by people with PhDs is incredible, especially when things like how many shots did they fire, you know. And this is said by people who probably never had a gun in their hands in their whole lives. But because they may be the world's authority on French literature or Mayan culture, they think that they can talk about other things that they absolutely know nothing about.
So can I ask you just, I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but I just want to square it up and give you the chance to address it squarely. Is it it's your view certainly that the Constitution correctly interpreted is colorblind,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
Right. So we make no distinctions. Discrimination would suggest unfair distinctions. Affirmative action would suggest distinctions that are at least grounded in a will to be helpful. They're both unconstitutional. We make no distinctions based on race. Okay, that's one point. You've already made that point. You want to contend that this colorblind Constitution, if we behave as if we're going to obey it,
Yep.
and we don't make distinctions based on race, that is best for African Americans.
It's not. Again, if we turn to hard facts, the hard facts is that between 1940 and 1960, practically nobody was paying any attention to blacks. Walter Williams used to say that he was so lucky to be born before white people wanted to be nice to blacks.
Oh my God, bro. I wish I could say that too, bro. Because now these same white people will now try to take credit for the success and hard work of black people that actually never needed them in the first place. This is my argument against diverse learning environments. Because if I was a kid, mom taught me how to read before first grade. At first grade, I was reading at a third grade level. So I absorbed information a lot faster than the other black kids. And you know what black culture, you want to know how black culture rewarded me for being so ahead of my peers, ahead of my group? Getting called names, lame, getting into fights. Oh, you think you're smarter than us. But you want a diverse learning environment. How does a diverse learning environment benefit a kid like me? That kid that don't need it. The kid that he can compete with the Asian kids. I was doing math at the same level as Asian kids. I'm competing with Asian kids. But my culture didn't find it cool to be academically skilled. But you want to create a diverse learning culture. How? At whose expense? Who is valued in that diverse learning culture? Diversity in of itself causes more harm than good. Because essentially you're lowering the bar. So black kids can feel good about themselves. Instead of telling black kids, nah, you rise to occasion. You don't fall to it. There's no evidence that diversity actually helped anybody. None. I've seen a lot of diversity hires come into my corporation and they get fired by they're already on a performance enhancement plan. Like diversity is just a superficial way of people to feel good about themselves at the expense at the individual that they claim to help. A diverse learning culture is primarily at a university level. A high school level is different. My argument to that is, and maybe you just came into the video, but I have this argument already, but college doesn't help you be better. Like, it doesn't. The damage is already done before you get to university. Most black kids, and we're only speaking about black kids, Spanish kids have this problem too, but we're talking about black kids because when we use diverse, we're not really talking about Spanish, Asian people. We're talking about black people here. Less than 1% of black students are at an advanced level for math, reading. That's just one of the two subjects I remember off the top of my head. Majority of black students that graduate high school are below proficiency level for reading and math. So you put majority of black kids in a diverse learning environment in university, because at the end of the day, university, they don't teach you anything. They filter. There's a test to get into university. They filter out students who already perform at that level. So kids who didn't have the adequate academic skills after high school, you setting them up for failure in college. This is why black kids have higher dropout rates than other groups of people. You have to fix the problem in primary school, elementary, middle school, high school. You need to raise up the proficiency rates of students in that circumstance before they get to university. That's the problem. By the time you do a diverse learning environment in university, it's already too late. This is why more black kids after the Harvard not Harvard, sorry. Thomas Sowell brought up the fact that he worked at Cornell University. Before Cornell University enacted affirmative action, black kids were graduating at a certain rate. He observed more black kids dropped out of school after they instituted affirmative action. So this is my argument of why affirmative action does more harm than good for black folks. I'm not saying black people don't need support, but I don't think black people should be put in a position where they're disproportionately set up to fail. That's just my argument, because there's no honor in dropping out of Ivy League university. Yeah, I agree with that. I was just reading Woke Racism by John McWhorter. He was saying the same thing. Look, the feeling, like, I understand the feeling. Yes, I would love it that there's representation everywhere, but that's a goal. That's a different goal, right? Hey, I just want 30% of the people to graduate medical school. A teacher could technically do that. Hey, let's just graduate these kids. But when they go into actually becoming doctors and people noticing, you misdiagnosed me. Oh my God, I almost died because you gave me the wrong medicine. When people start noticing that, it's going to create racism. It's going to create a downward spiral. For the short term, it may look good, but in the long term, it'll hurt you. It'll hurt the group of people even more, because they'll gain a reputation. And we don't want that. I think that's what I'm trying to avoid. Short-term gain for long-term losses. That's what affirmative action. That's the reality of diversity. Because when layoffs happen, I'm in corporate America. When layoffs happen, the first people they let go is the diversity hires. Is that fair to them? They have this idea that, I got here on my own merit. But in reality, they got there because they fit a quota. Look at Disney. They just fired their executive diversity officer. Black woman, I think. Gone. Because she didn't add any value to the bottom line of the company. When hard times hit, the expendables are gone. Because diversity officers, the diversity department, are nice to haves. Is this what we're going to train black people to do? To be chief diversity officers? So that way they fit the quota. Oh, look how diverse our executive team is. This is the equivalent of I forgot, what do you call it? A participation trophy. A constellation prize. I don't think it's good in the long term for black people to buy into this diversity thing. What young blacks today need are a huge dose of Mosivus, Rufus, Epictetus, I agree. Seneca, I agree. Marcus Aurelius, yes, I agree. I have all three. I like my favorite are Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your own mind, not outside events. Know this and you have strength. I think that's what black people should be repeating to themselves, because only black people can fix their own problems. They do not want to focus on real issues with black students. That's the real issue. It's a cultural issue. This is why I agree with Thomas Sowell when he said black culture is the biggest impediment to black America. Because end of the day, culture creates incentives. Does the black community uplift smart black men? No, they don't. They uplift superficial-ish. How good looking he is, how tall he is, how muscular he is. Black men gets evaluated based on physicality, not on brains. And you get the men you get. This is why you get men with 8 kids, can't take care of none of them because he looked good. but he don't have any skills to actually provide for those kids. And the epitome of what black women culturally, I'm going from a cultural perspective, I'm not saying all black women like this, but I'm going from a cultural perspective. Most black people will find LeBron James cool. But if I ask black people, who's the richest black person in America today? They're going to tell me Jay-Z, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, and ain't none of them dudes. I don't even know the guy's name. I'm sorry. Look, I'm my own statistic here. But I know where he works at. He works in finance. College educated. I think he graduated from a historically black college. I forgot his name. But no black person will know who that is because the culture don't uplift him. They uplift LeBron James, Jay-Z, and kids strive to be like them. But I digress. I'm gonna let Thomas Sowell take this home. I was supposed to get off like 15 minutes ago, so I'm about to wrap this up. So let's listen to a few more minutes with Thomas Sowell, and then I'll wrap this all up with a bow on top. I digress. Let's get back into it.
He traced his own career to when a white teacher in a school in the Philadelphia ghetto chewed him out unmercifully. And he was very angry and so forth. But he traces his own progress from that point on to being chewed out. That doesn't happen,
When you make a mistake, like this is gonna prove my point. When you make a mistake, how you get better? When someone points out the mistake to you and say, hey, you need to get better here. This is not acceptable. Or someone that tolerates you performing at that level. This is the same case this is what they're doing essentially in public school today. They won't suspend kids nowadays because, it's racist, because they notice disproportionately black men specifically get suspended more than any other group of people in America. So they say, racism. When you go to an all black county in Michigan or Baltimore, and they found the same thing going on there too. So it wasn't racism. It's just these kids behave badly and they suffer a consequence for their action. But because it happens to be a black person, we can't do that no more. This is what I call lowering the bar. If I'm a parent and I love my son, I'm going to stop him from doing behaviors that are bad because I'm not going to be around with my son all the time. And if he do those same behaviors with someone else, they're not going to want to be around him. So I may have spared my son's feelings, but in the long run, I set him up for an even bigger disaster. And that's what's going on in Black America today. Black people don't need special treatment. They just need to be treated the same. And affirmative action gets in the way of that. Social justice gets in the way of that. How you claim to be one people when you treat people, I'm going to treat this Asian person differently. I'm going to treat this white man differently. I'm going to treat this black person differently. White kid shows up class late. You're in detention, sir. Black kid shows up late in class. It's fine. Because showing up on time is white culture. Now, it's getting so bad. This is why I'm against diversity completely. This is why I'm against identity politics completely. It's getting so bad that people are now attributing behavior with race. Imagine that. They're attributing behavior with race. If I show up late, it's because I'm black. Black people, we're not good with math. And people will take that as a legitimate argument. Saving is racist because we know only white people save money. Your credit score is good. We make jokes about it, but now these social justice advocates, they're taking it seriously. Credit scores are racist because disproportionately black people are punished for their behavior. Because they're black. No. It's because black people just happen to attribute these bad behaviors more. That's it. And black people can change that result by changing their behavior. Simple. All I'm saying is the power is in our hands to change. Just like in the civil rights movement, when you were protesting and fighting for your freedom, it started with you. Change always starts with you. Then everything else follow. But you ain't going to sit here, look pretty, and expect the system or everyone else to do it for you. Like, imagine that. We're playing, this is why I like sports, because sports mirrors reality. If I'm playing against, let's say I'm Golden State. If I'm playing against the Lakers, I'm not going to play the game expecting the Lakers to do something for me. This is where this is where I can get out of my head. Shelby Steele said it best. White guilt is black power. Black power doesn't exist if white people don't feel guilty about themselves. Black people need to embrace a conservative culture. We used to. Booker T. Washington is my example from a historical perspective. Booker T. Washington and in the Negro Business League was when black people were the most conservative in history. And what happened during the Negro Business League? Two, not one Black Wall Street, two Black Wall Streets. One in Durham, North Carolina, and one in Tulsa. We had ex-slaves dying millionaires. Black people were graduating university without affirmative action. But we need diverse learning environments. No, I think that's the problem. I think diversity highlights our differences. It doesn't bring us together. It divides us even more. Because how you can come together as one tribe when people are trying to find reasons to be different from another. Race pride. I don't believe in race pride. Now a lot of black families are broken. Yes. I forgot. There's a guy, and if I had to recommend one person, his name is Robert Woodson, if I remember his name correctly. And he had a quote. He showed up on Dr. Phil when he was saying that when white people was at their worst, black people was at their best. And he used to be a civil rights leader. I forgot his name. I did a video on him before. I have a video called "Race Grievances Is Not the Truth." I forgot the name of the video, but the guy's name is Robert Woodson Sr. I always recommend his book "Red, White, and Black." He talks about black history from a conservative perspective. How black people were successful without relying on other groups of people to do anything for them. The do for self message. That's the black conservative message. Government, do nothing for me. If you want to know what black conservatism is this idea I don't need no one to do squat for me. I just need you to get out of the way. That's black conservatism. But hey, I've been rambling too long, boy. I appreciate you guys talking. A lot of blacks are voting Democrat, and Democrat Party is not supporting the family unit, a father and a mother with children. If you don't have common values and goals, diversity will drive you apart, but it can be a source of strength if you have common values and goals and diversity of thought and experience. Charlestown, I appreciate that comment. I think the problem here is that's what I'm saying. Diversity in of itself is its own individual goal, because at what cost are you willing to do for diversity? What is a man willing to do for his ideals? The answer is lie. Do anything for it. So if your ideals is I want a diverse workforce. Okay, you expect me to think he's not cutting corners to get that ends? Diversity by itself is nothing. I agree. But what happened when diversity conflicts with meritocracy? I just gave you a stat. 74% of the NBA is black. I want diversity. It counterfacts that because most of the best players are what? Black. It just so happens they're the best players. So you got two goals. Long term, you help white players become better basketball players. That may take decades. You may not be alive before white players actually play at the same athletic level as black players. So what? You take a shortcut. Okay, we'll just leave out these specific spots for white players. That is a conflict of interest. Not a lot of people can chase two goals. You have to prioritize one of them. Either common values, and I agree. I think values is it. Like, hey, here's the values. Here's the bar. Everyone has to meet it. And that's it. It's tough. I know it's tough. It's nuanced. I know. Everyone has their opinions. Everyone has their reasons. But I just think if the intentions don't match the result, I think it's time to reconsider what we're striving for. That's all I'm trying to say.
Anymore. Again, I mean, the hard facts. 1940 to 1960, there was not there were no great riots and so forth. There were no great demonstrations. Most intellectuals weren't paying much attention to blacks one way or the other. In the places where they were paying attention, the South, they were paying attention to enforce discriminatory laws. under those conditions, blacks advanced better than under these new conditions beginning in the 1960s, which was so supposed to be so favorable.
All right.
Yep, 1960s. And Democrats love to point, like, it seemed like whenever we talk about black history, that's as far back as we're willing to go. 1960s, when the Democrats started doing stuff for us. That's as far back as we go. Because if you go further than 1960s, you're going to notice the Republican Party. Oh, who was the first black man in the White House? Booker T. Washington. Who was the party in power at the time? Oh, Theodore Roosevelt, if I remember correctly. Yeah, Republican president. Oh, first president to accept a black man into the White House, a Republican. Who was the first politicians? Who's the first black politicians in history? Oh, Republican. That's why they ask. Sorry, I cursed. That's why their butt don't go past 1960, because then it starts. Oh, Republicans did something for black people. What? Because there's this idea that Democrats only do stuff. Democrats are the only party that do stuff for black people. That's the conception. That's the narrative. Hey, I digress. Let's get back.
Tom, are you aware that there are thousands of videos on YouTube?
I'm gonna end the stream after this, because this part is not as information based, but I think Peter did a good job here. I love Peter Robinson, man. I hope this guy lives a long time. I hope so, because he's gonna show Thomas Sowell the effects of his work and how more black people, right, are becoming aware of his stuff. That's because Republicans used to be left leaning. It switched in the 70s. Oh, here come the party switch. Here come the party switch. Switched how, I wonder? Switched how? Democrats haven't switched much, right? For instance, I could take what's the left leaning thing I could do? I could find market regulation. Let's do market regulation. Black codes is market regulation used for racism. So, but Democrats still believe in market regulation. A lot of the stuff that Democrats push today, the KKK was advocating them to push even now. Gun control was rooted in racism. No one knows that. Why would, like, this is why Democrats didn't want black people to gain citizenship. It wasn't the right to vote. It's because black people can arm themselves. How can you lynch a group of people without guns? With guns? You can't. Them KKK members would have been like gone on the first shot. So in a lot of these Democratic states, during the time of Jim Crow and them, they enforced gun control laws. And they're still pushing it today. I just think what happened was the disintegration of the family. That's what caused black people to switch to the Democratic Party. Because they fell in love with the government doing stuff for them by going after the women. That's what I think. They incentivize the women. Hey, women, you don't need your man. You can't have a man in the house. And Thomas Sowell called it out too. Thomas Sowell was like, hey, you subsidizing single motherhood. No, we're not. We're just helping single mothers. Single motherhood at the time in the 1960s during the war on poverty, it was like 25%. Only 25% of black women were single mothers. And the government wanted to cater to them. But they created an incentive structure where we're not going to help everybody. We're just going to help these group of people. And then the younger generation was like, oh, I don't think I need a man to raise a kid. And that's where it started. I don't need no man. That's where it started. And then the government let 10 years go by without punishing black men for having kids out of wedlock, because black men thought they were helping black women by getting them pregnant and say, oh, if I don't stay with you, the government, you get all these benefits from the government, way more than what I could provide for you. And the black women, okay. And then the government realized, yo, they're doing this on purpose. Child support. You see the finesse? For 10 years, they allowed black men to have kids out of wedlock without any legal repercussions. And then once you got into a cultural pattern of producing kids without being married, penalize you with child support. And now y'all both in the finesse. That's why black women are the most loyal Democratic voters today. I think black women, you guys vote like 94% for the Democratic Party. Black men, they're starting to lose the black male vote. I'm a prime example of that. I'm 27 years old. Never voted Democrat a day in my life. My dad voted for Obama. That's the only Democrat my dad ever voted for. Because my dad didn't get citizenship until year 2000. He voted for Bush both times. Then he voted for Obama. Then my dad was like, Obama was all talk. He was just another Democrat. He voted for Mitt Romney, I believe. My dad was the first one. Before Thomas Sowell, before Larry Elder, it was my dad. My dad was like, hey, look, Kenny, don't let anyone tell you you're supposed to vote for a party because of the color of your skin. I was like, oh, but you voted for Obama because he was black? He said, yeah, and that was a mistake. Told me straight like that. My dad told me straight like that. He said, you do what's best for you and your family, not best for your skin color. Because what you know about a person just because of the color of their skin? You have more in common with an American than a Nigerian. That's what my dad told me. He said, if a Haitian comes straight from the boat, you say you have more in common with a white American than that Haitian that comes straight from the boat. Because the only thing you got in common is something superficial. Words from my father. Maybe that's why I turned out more conservative. Maybe this is why they don't want black men to be around their fathers. Because their fathers might actually speak some sense into them and it's a wrap. I digress. Let's get into how Thomas Sowell gets exposed to the impact that he's having on the internet. I digress. Let's get back into the video.
That follow this format. It's people, 1, 2, 3, 4, watching a video of you and then commenting on it. Are you aware that you are a YouTube
I've seen that once.
You've seen it once? I'm going to show you a couple if you don't mind.
Well,
I want you to see what people make of you. And then let's go ahead. Here's the first one. What advice would you give a young Thomas Sowell? How do you make something of yourself as an African American in America today?
the way anybody else would. You equip yourself with skills that people are willing to pay for.
Bruh, yo, it's like, yo, I think my dad used to listen to Thomas Sowell. He just didn't tell me, bro. My dad told me the same thing. Kenny, be so good they can't deny you. You know, Kenny, I try to talk like my dad. Kenny, you know, your dad was a smart guy, you know? You got to be smart like daddy. My dad always put that in my head. Yo, you going to be an engineer, doctor? You know the immigrants, you know what they tell us. You got 3 options: lawyer, doctor, or engineer. That's it. That's the only choices you got. Practicality. That's what we lack in our culture today. Our culture is too emotional now. We got people telling us emotional advice instead of practical advice. That's practical. Learn a skill that pays you a lot of money. That's how you get out of poverty. You don't need the Democrats to do something for you. None of that. No. Start a business. Provide a valuable service. Bring it to market. You're a millionaire. Done. But no. Then we don't have an excuse for why we're successful. If you say it's because of racism, I have an excuse. Look, it's because of my color of my skin. That's why I couldn't do nothing. That's why math is hard for me. That's why I couldn't show up on time. That's why I couldn't save money. It's because of my skin color. Are we really fighting against racism? Or are we trying to use racism as an alibi to make excuses for our failings in life, for our own personal decision making and behavior? Because at the end of the day, no one told black women to take affirmative action. Not affirmative action. No one told black women to take the handouts from the government. The government was trying hard to get black people on the welfare system because, they have to justify why they create a whole department. So they had to the government almost created a demand for it instead of responding to a demand. Like Reagan said, the purpose of welfare is to put itself out of existence. But that's not the purpose. But is that how welfare is operating today? No. If you're on welfare right now, you say, "Hey, I want to get off welfare." The people are trying to talk you into staying on welfare, even though you technically don't need it. Why? Because they need to justify spending money towards welfare. The government, they need to be able to justify having the same budget or more. Hey, more people need our services. We need more funding. This is the same thing that's going on in the Department of Education. We spend more money in the Department of Education, and the quality of education gets worse. Our test scores get worse, but we're spending more money on it. It's a racket. These government institutions, these government departments, they only care about staying funded, keeping their jobs. So that means if you stay poor, black people, they still keep their jobs. So what incentive does the Democrat have to actually change their position? What incentives does the Democrat has to actually change your lot in life? Because if you stay, black people, we're one of the poorest minorities. Actually, yeah, we're one of the poorest minorities in America. If you stay that way, Democrats benefit by getting 90% of your vote if nothing changed. So what incentive do they have to actually better your situation? I'm waiting. I digress.
I like how you talk. I'm telling you.
happens to me
I
all-
like how you talk. I'm telling you. Shit, that make me smile. I like how you talk. Come on. I feel like it's a lot of young kids, young teenagers, young adults that need to be listening.
I like how he talks. And I can think of a lot of kids that need to be listening.
See,
How can it be that what
I'm gonna
you
let him finish.
say, learn skills that people are willing to pay for, how can it be that that can strike people such as so many Americans as fresh?
I think it's because we got so used to hearing emotional arguments that we never heard. Because to me, Thomas Sowell, he comes across like, I never met my grandfather, right? He comes across as the grandfather for me. I want to one day when my kids are older, because I have two kids, one 3-month old and one 3-year-old. I want them to come to me and be like, Dad, I need some practical advice here. I said, I got you, son. Because that's what my father did for me. And I noticed that, like, when you invest in the next generation, you prepare them for what's up ahead. You don't try to shield them from hardship, because life is hard. You have to make your kids strong to prepare for a hard life, not wishing that life was easy. You make them accept, hey, life is hard, son. Hey, sometimes you're going to fail in life. It's not how what happens to you, it's how you respond. You can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. How are you going to respond, son? And that's pretty much what Thomas Sowell is telling you. Hey, look, these are the facts. How are you going to respond? Are you going to get mad about the facts, or are you going to do something about it? A lot of black students that graduate high school are underprepared for college. What are we going to do about that fact? Are we going to sit here and cry? Or are we going to tell the college to lower their standards? And kill the quality of service? And then when the marketplace start discriminating against black workers, they're going to call it racism. Short-term, when you take shortcuts, you get long-term pain because it snowballs. And this is why I put my voice out there too. Because just like Thomas Sowell is touching people, I can touch people the same way. Hey, look, Thomas Sowell is 93 years old. There has to be some people to replace him. Now, Larry Elder got that on deck. I ain't gonna lie to you. Larry Elder, he's gonna be someone else's Thomas Sowell. But it has to, like, the tradition has to keep going on. And showing Thomas Sowell how his books have an effect, because he has 40 books. I don't have 40 books. I think I got like 5 of his books. Basic Economics, Economics and Fallacies, Discrimination and the Disparities and Discrimination. I already said Basic Economics. Charter Schools and Their Enemies. And I think the last one is the Thomas Sowell Reader. And I'm trying to find this book here. I probably have to order on Amazon, but I like to find my books in Barnes and Nobles. But hey, enough about me. Let's see how Thomas Sowell reacts to this.
Countercultural, heretical, something that kids need to hear. How can it be that in this day and age, it strikes people as
It's common sense.
it's
And one of the problems with many of the elites is that the very commonness of common sense does not serve their purposes.
Exactly.
It's wonderful to believe that you have some insights that all the vast millions don't have, and that therefore you should be making their decisions for them. I think the minimum wage laws are a classic example of this. That we have people out there who think that when there are jobs available at wages that the black teenagers are willing to accept and the employers are willing to pay, they're third parties knowing nothing about either the industry or about the condition of the people themselves have a right to pass laws forbidding them from having wages that get them employed. And then when they discover, or in most cases they don't even check, that the unemployment of the teenagers goes up as you raise the minimum wage.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I mentioned in the book, in 1948, black and white teenagers had virtually identical unemployment rates, and it was a fraction of what teenagers of all sorts have today.
I think also we're on our current culture, my generation, millennial culture, is suffering through right now is delayed adulthood in a way, because the fact that a minimum wage keeps rising, we start not caring about the unemployment rates of teenagers, because in our minds we don't expect people to actually start working for their own livelihood until they're at least 21 and graduated from college, right? And I think our culture needs to prepare us to kind of grow up sooner, right? I think you should already start making your decisions when you're a teenager. Like you already should, like to me, you should already start treating yourself like a young adult in the making. But we keep pushing adulting, right? Adulting, that's my generation, we like to label things. That's common sense, but adulting, right? We're living in our parents' homes longer, right? And that's due to other factors, but also this idea, I think, of you have all the time in the world. Oh, you're young. You have a lot of time on your hands. Technically, you don't. Because at the end of the day, you don't know when you're actually going to die. We assume, hey, 80, maybe 90 years old. But in reality, you don't know when your time is actually up. So to have this idea that you have all the time in the world, I think it's kind of keeping a delayed adolescence in a lot of millennials, Gen Z today. We don't want to grow up. Gen Z don't even want to get driver's license nowadays. And it's because I think we've been coddled, especially in our culture. We want to boost people's self-esteem instead of telling them reality. Oh, you could be anything in this world. Well, you don't perform well in English, but not English. You don't perform well in math, but I ain't gonna tell you that. Let you waste your time trying to go through engineering school, and then when you inevitably fail, you're gonna say the system's not fair. When no one told you the truth ever because they didn't want to hurt your feelings. I mean, I digress. Let's get into this. I think I'm going to wrap up this video soon. I think I want to hear Thomas Sowell finish his point about minimum wage. And then I'm going to wrap up the stream, and then I'll let you guys go.
And the reason was quite simple. The minimum wage law was passed in 1938, and it hadn't been changed in 10 years. And those were 10 years of runaway inflation. And so for all practical purpose, there was no minimum wage law.
I see.
And under those conditions, you got black and white teenagers having unemployment rates of 10% and no difference between them. Now in come the wonderful people with the wonderful ideas, and they keep raising the minimum wage to keep ahead of inflation.
Oh my God.
And now for a period of more than 2 decades, consecutive decades, the minimum wage rates for black teenagers never falls below 20%. And in some years it's over 40%. And in the early
unemployment
rates, yes. And in the early 20th century, it hit 52% right after Obama was elected president. So presumably, there was less racism in
Oh my God.
03, I think it was, than there was in 1948.
And this is because I want to understand the concept, but I don't know how to put it other than crudely, that the market doesn't think that the 52% who are unemployed can provide value up to the level of the minimum wage.
Exactly.
That's true, yes.
That's
yes.
true.
That's reality.
But the argument is, that's nobody's business. Those kids you need to get started someplace in life, and maybe you get started with a job that pays well below the minimum wage. But if you're willing to take that wage and do the work, it's a way of entering the work.
Yeah, so consent is important in this matter. If someone's willing to be paid at that rate, who is the government to decide? No, they shouldn't be able to. You don't know the factors. You don't know if the guy's just trying to get experience and get into a job, so he could finesse it or take that into something else. But I digress. I think I've been on this too long. I was supposed to end this like an hour ago, but I got really into it. I appreciate you guys on the live chat to talk with me. It's nice to have a little good back and forth. I hope you guys have a good weekend. I'll try to create chapters so that way if you want to review on this video and skim through it. Also, I'll leave a link to the original video in the live stream's descriptions after I'm done editing the video. And I appreciate everything you guys done. Charlestown, Idle Castle, even Miranda. I enjoy you guys having you guys on the live chat. Rails to Roads as well. I appreciate you guys having you guys on the live stream, and I'll catch you guys on the next live stream. Hope to see you guys there, and peace. So have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys on the next one.